Our gospel reading for this morning comes from Matthew's gospel, the 28th verse, the 28th chapter, beginning with the first verse. It is his account, of course, of the events of Easter morning. Listen for what the Spirit would say to us this day. After the Sabbath, as the first day of the week was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord, descending from heaven, came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. For fear of him the guards shook and became like dead men. But the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid. I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has been raised, as he said. Come, see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has been raised from the dead, and indeed he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him. This is my message for you." So they left the tomb quickly with fear and great joy, and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them and said, "Greetings." And they came to him, took hold of his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
After many years of marriage, Joanne lost her husband following a long illness. And this loss hit her terribly hard. They had had a unique, special bond, and she had been especially dedicated to him. She did not know who she was on her own. She struggled to make peace with her loss, to recover any sense of normalcy in her life. But this Joanne was also a church person who wanted to help others. And so after many, many months, she talked to her pastor and said that she would like to counsel with others who had lost their spouses, to help them through what she knew was a very difficult time. And naturally, her pastor thought this a wonderful idea and encouraged her to connect with some members of the church who had recently been widowed. Sometime later, the pastor received a phone call from one of those widows. The pastor asked, "How are you doing?" She said, "Well, it's been hard, but I think I'm doing okay. Some days are good, some are bad, but the good days seem to be more frequent." And the pastor said he was glad to hear that, and said, "What can I do for you?" "Would you please tell Joanne to quit calling?" she replied. "I know she's only trying to help, but she keeps talking about how it never gets any better. How she misses her husband as much as she did the first day he died, and how the emptiness never goes away. To be honest, I always feel a lot worse after I've talked to her." Now, when we're going through a time of loss or tragedy, someone who knows what we've been through can be a godsend. My mother used to volunteer at an organization known as CanCare. And CanCare would connect newly diagnosed cancer patients with someone who had gone through that before, who had received the treatment before. And the idea was to provide a friend who had been down this road before to walk that path with them. Even more, though, the idea was to give hope. A CanCare volunteer could say out of real life experience, "You can do this, you can handle it. Cancer does not have to totally take charge of your entire life. There is reason for hope." That's why Joanne's help was so unappreciated. It had absolutely no hope. Now, most of us have times in our lives when we experience pain or loss or hurt or brokenness, and we simply cannot see a way out of it. And while it may be comforting at such times to talk with someone who knows how we feel, what we most need is hope. We need hope that we will not always feel this way. Hope that things will get better. Hope that we will find some meaning and purpose for our lives. Hope that we will find a job. Hope that our children will be okay. Hope that there can be a reconciliation in a broken relationship. Hope that there can be life after a failed relationship. We need hope that there is a way from where we are to someplace better. Hope was gone for Mary Magdalene and that other Mary as they set out for the tomb early on a Sunday morning. They had invested all of their hope in Jesus, and now Jesus was dead. They had followed him from Galilee. They had used their savings to help support him and support the disciples. But Jesus had been arrested. The disciples had all deserted him. In Matthew's Gospel, there are no disciples there when Jesus is crucified. But these women are there. Perhaps they're close enough that they hear Jesus when he cries, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And if they did hear it, it must have seemed that even Jesus had lost all hope. But then in an instant, everything changed. An earthquake, a divine messenger, and those words, "He is not here, for he has been raised." You know, in our society, Christmas, I'm not confused, Christmas draws an awful lot of people into the church. And that's hardly surprising given how much attention our culture lavishes on Christmas. There's the joy and the nostalgia and a cute story with a little baby. Even people who aren't much interested in Christian faith come to the church on Christmas Eve to bask in the warmth of old traditions, the nostalgic glow, the good cheer of that moment. Easter, by contrast, received scant attention from the culture. I'm pretty sure no radio station has been playing non-stop Easter music for the past several weeks to get us ready for today. Our culture's celebration of Easter pales next to Christmas. And yet, the churches swell on Easter morning. And the reason is simple. We need Easter a lot more than we need Christmas. We desperately need to hear that the moment of the greatest hopelessness in all history was swallowed up in God's love. He is not here, for he has been raised. The very real power of pain and brokenness and loss and evil that we encounter in our lives, even the power of death itself, is no match for the power of God's hope. For the love of God that is stronger than anything in all creation that is aligned against hope and life and good. Along with the author of the book that this congregation has been using as a Lenten study, I too have as one of my all-time favorite movies, The Shawshank Redemption. If you've never seen it, you really ought to. Tim Robbins plays Andy, a bank executive who has been wrongly convicted of murder, sentenced to 2 life terms in a brutal penitentiary. There he strikes up an unlikely friendship with a long-timer named Red, played wonderfully by Morgan Freeman. And although Andy has been falsely imprisoned, he holds on to a hope that he will one day be free, that he will get to Mexico and start a hotel and operate a fishing boat there on the shores of the Pacific Ocean. He even invites Red to come and be his assistant when he goes. But Red warns Andy to let go of such hope. Hope is a dangerous thing, he says. Hope can drive a man insane. It's got no place. It's got no use on the inside. But Andy will not let go of hope. He even shares hope. He starts a prison library. He helps inmates to get their high school diplomas. And finally, after nearly 20 years in prison, Andy pulls off a remarkable escape. An all-out search ensues, but they never find him. Not too long afterwards, Red is finally paroled. But after a lifetime in prison, he simply cannot adjust to life on the outside. He's all set to commit some petty crime so that they will take him back to the prison. But one thing stops him. A promise he had made to Andy. And so Red hitches a ride, makes his way to a field, hunts through this field and finds a particular tree. And beneath the tree is a stone wall, and buried at the base of the stone wall, Red uncovers a box. And in it is money and a letter from Andy. In that letter, Andy invites him to come join him in Mexico to help him get the venture up and running. And the letter concludes, "Remember, Red, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things. And a good thing never dies. I'm hoping this letter finds you, and finds you well. Your friend, Andy." And the last words that we hear in the movie are actually Red's thoughts as he rides on a Trailways bus to Fort Hancock, Texas. "I hope I can make it across the border. I hope to see my friend and shake his hand. I hope the Pacific is as blue as it has been in my dreams. I hope." The angel said, "He is not here, for he has been raised. And so I hope." Thanks be to God.